Imagine waking up one morning with a deep sense that something in your life doesn't quite fit. Your job, your relationships, your beliefs. Everything seems intact on the surface. But there's an itch beneath it all, a quiet, persistent feeling that you've built your world on a story that might not be true. Not a lie you told others, but one you told yourself. You go about your day, performing the rituals of modern life, checking your phone, responding to emails, smiling at co-workers, yet something gnaws at the edges of your consciousness. A kind of internal static. And then it hits you. What if the version of yourself you present to the world isn't just a performance, but a performance you've come to believe? You scroll through old photos. You see yourself laughing at parties, posing in travel destinations, celebrating milestones. It all looks so real, but in a sudden wave of clarity, you wonder, who were you trying to convince? The people around you, or yourself? That you're happy, fulfilled, honest? That you know who you are? What if the real deception isn't the lie we tell others, but the illusion we craft to protect ourselves from truths we can't bear to face? It's a terrifying possibility. That beneath our carefully curated identities lies a stranger, suppressed not by accident, but by design. That the mind, brilliant and ruthless, has evolved not only to see truth, but to edit it, cutting away what threatens our ego, masking wounds with convenient fictions, distorting reality to preserve the fragile illusion of coherence. We think of self-deception as a flaw of weak character, a betrayal of integrity. But what if it's the opposite? What if self-deception is a feature of the human psyche, not a bug? What if lying to ourselves is the very mechanism by which we survive the unbearable contradictions of life? You say you value honesty, but do you really want to know the whole truth about yourself? About your failures, your fears, your motives? You claim to seek meaning, but how much of what you call meaning is just a beautifully wrapped defense mechanism, shielding you from chaos? You tell yourself you're a good person, but what would you see if you stripped away the narratives and looked at your raw desires, your hidden resentments, your unspoken judgments? There's a reason we don't often ask these questions. They threaten the scaffolding of the self. Because the moment you start peeling back the layers, you risk uncovering that your core isn't a solid truth, but a collage of stories you needed to believe to function. Childhood memories that were reshaped to make sense of pain. Values you adopted to gain acceptance. Goals you pursued not out of passion, but out of fear of inadequacy. A personality, not born, but performed so well for so long it became indistinguishable from the real thing. And it goes deeper. Even the act of introspection, this so-called noble quest for self-awareness, can become its own trap. You begin to suspect that your desire to understand yourself is itself a defense mechanism, a strategy to feel in control, to avoid the sheer terror of confronting the fact that perhaps there is no fixed self to understand. Just a series of roles, reactions, fragments, consciousness, masquerading as identity. Is it possible that the mind prefers a comforting lie over a painful truth not out of weakness, but as a necessity? That illusion isn't the enemy of sanity, but its partner. That without selective blindness, we'd crumble under the weight of everything we don't want to know. This is the great paradox. We crave authenticity, yet we are built for deception, not just outwardly, but inwardly. We believe we are rational beings, guided by truth, when in reality, we are rationalizing beings, masters of narrative, constantly editing the story to protect our sense of self. It's not just what we don't know that controls us, it's what we refuse to know, what we bury, what we rewrite. So, where does that leave us? If the enemy is not deception itself, but our own refusal to recognize how intimately it lives within us, then what hope do we have of ever seeing clearly? Perhaps the better question is this: do we even want to see clearly? Or is clarity too dangerous, too destabilizing, too isolating? You're standing at the edge of a psychological abyss. One more step, and you begin to see not just how others lie to themselves, but how you do it too, with words, with memories, with certainty, with hope. The next step isn't about exposure, but revelation. To understand not just that we deceive ourselves, but why, and what lies beneath the need. You think you're ready for that truth? Then come closer. Let's descend further. Let's find the roots. Self-deception isn't a glitch in the human operating system. It's the system itself. And to truly grasp this, you need to go back. Not just to your childhood, but to the origins of consciousness, to the very moment a creature became aware not just of the world, but of itself. With that awareness came the unbearable weight of knowing, I will die. I am vulnerable. I am judged. And so, from the beginning, the human mind learned to split itself, to see and not see, to remember selectively, to forget strategically. The birth of self-awareness was also the birth of self-deception. Psychologist Robert Trivers, one of the first to frame self-deception as an evolutionary advantage, argued that lying to yourself makes you better at lying to others. If you don't know you're lying, you can't give yourself away. In this view, deception isn't a failure of ethics. It's an adaptive tool, a survival tactic. You deceive yourself to protect your social standing, to avoid shame, to maintain emotional stability. The lie isn't just convenient, it's essential. But this isn't a recent development. Thousands of years ago, Greek philosophers were already circling this psychological riddle. Socrates warned that the unexamined life is not worth living, yet he also understood the danger of staring too long into the abyss. Plato's allegory of the cave describes prisoners mistaking shadows for reality and fighting to stay in the dark rather than face the blinding truth of the outside world. The cave wasn't just a prison, it was comfort, it was safety, it was the lie we need to believe to feel okay. Nietzsche pushed this even further. He saw truth not as something inherently noble, but often intolerable. We have art, he wrote, so that we shall not die of the truth. In other words, we create illusions, not to deceive others, but to protect ourselves from the brutal nakedness of reality. For Nietzsche, the most dangerous people were not those who lied, but those who saw too clearly and couldn't look away. Self-deception, then, is not just a weakness, it's a mercy, a necessary delusion. But what exactly are we protecting ourselves from? What is so terrifying that we would rather distort our perception of reality than face it? Start with identity. We like to think of the self as a stable, cohesive thing, a personality, a set of values, a consistent consciousness. But the truth is far messier. According to modern psychology, the self is more like a narrative center of gravity than a solid entity. It's a story the brain tells to unify conflicting impulses, traumas, desires, and roles. The self is not who you are. It's who you need to believe you are to stay sane. Consider the work of Carl Jung, who introduced the concept of the shadow, the part of the psyche that holds everything we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. Our rage, our lust, our envy, our cowardice. The shadow isn't evil, it's simply disowned. And the more we deny it, the more power it gains. Jung believed that to become whole, we must confront this darkness, integrate it. But most people never do. Why? Because it's easier to project our darkness onto others than to own it ourselves. This is why you judge people who act in ways you secretly envy. This is why you rationalize your failures while condemning others for the same mistakes. This is why you say you just don't care when deep down you do. You hide your motives even from yourself. Not because you're dishonest, but because honesty, real honesty, would dismantle the scaffolding of your identity. It doesn't stop at the personal level. Entire cultures are built on collective self-deception. National myths, historical revisionism, moral double standards. These are all ways societies preserve cohesion by obscuring the truth. George Orwell called this doublethink, the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs at the same time and accept both of them. We condemn violence while glorifying war. We preach equality while hoarding privilege. We celebrate freedom while policing conformity. And we don't even notice because the lie is baked into the very language we use.
And yet we continue to believe we are rational, that our choices are conscious, that our memories are accurate. But neuroscience tells a different story. The brain constantly edits reality to fit its pre-existing narratives. Memories aren't stored like files. They're reconstructed every time you recall them, shaped by mood, context, and bias.
You remember what supports your identity and discard what doesn't. You create false memories without even realizing it, and then you defend them as truth. Even your morality, what you believe is right or wrong, isn't as objective as you think. Studies show that people often make moral judgments first, then invent reasons to justify them after the fact. You feel something instinctively, then backfill a rationale to make it seem deliberate. Reason becomes a servant of emotion, not its master. So here you are, an organism that constructs a self out of stories, filters reality through bias, edits memory for comfort, and believes its own illusions. Not because you are broken, but because you are human. The real danger of self-deception isn't just that it distorts your understanding of the world. It's that it blinds you to yourself. It makes you believe you are free when you are conditioned, that you are good when you are merely acceptable, that you are awake when in fact you are still dreaming, with your eyes wide open. And yet there's a strange beauty in all this, a tragic elegance. Because buried within the machinery of self-deception is a hidden longing for truth, for wholeness, for liberation. The mind may lie, but something deeper wants to see, to pierce the veil, to confront the shadow, to be real. But what happens when that deeper part of you begins to stir, when it starts asking questions the rest of you wants to ignore? You're not just facing a psychological dilemma, you're approaching a threshold, and once you cross it, there's no going back. The cost of truth is high, but the cost of illusion is everything. And now the question becomes, what has self-deception already cost you? And what will it continue to steal if you don't see it for what it is? Let's go there. Let's look at what's already been lost, what's quietly slipping away. Here's the problem with stories of resilience, with tales of triumph over adversity. They're almost always retrospective. By the time the story reaches us, the protagonist has already won. The challenges have been overcome, the battles fought and concluded. And as a result, the journey feels like a straight line, a simple progression from hardship to victory. It reinforces a comforting narrative. If that person could do it, so can I. But it leaves something unspoken. What if you don't win? What if the therapy sessions drag on without insight? The medications don't alleviate the darkness? The 12 steps offer temporary reprieve, but ultimately you're back at square one. The silence is deafening, the solitude suffocating. That's where most of these journeys end, not with a flourish, but with a question mark hanging heavy in the air. Here's the thing. Healing isn't a destination. It's a practice, a constant recalibration. And the most unsettling part of that process is realizing that sometimes, despite our best efforts, the pain persists. It doesn't yield to logic, therapy, or medication. And that realization is like staring into an abyss. It's terrifying. It shakes our core belief that we can, we should, we will be whole. And in that moment, we're faced with two paths. One, continue fighting, clawing, grasping at wholeness, desperately trying to shape our brokenness into something whole. Or two, accept the incompleteness, the permanent scars, the lingering questions. Embracing the second path is a form of courage. It's the bravery to acknowledge that healing doesn't always mean complete recovery, that growth isn't always linear, that wholeness sometimes looks different than we imagine. But here's the crux of the matter. Acceptance isn't passive. It's not giving up. It's choosing to live a full life, a rich, meaningful life with the understanding that some wounds may never fully heal, some shadows may always linger, some questions may never find answers. And that's where the true challenge lies, not in seeking wholeness, but in learning to live with the broken pieces, to truly embrace the broken, beautiful mess that is our existence. And in doing so, discovering that sometimes incompleteness is the truest form of completeness. This is a big deal because most of us have been raised believing that emotional health is a binary. We either achieve it or we don't. We beat depression or anxiety. We conquer PTSD. We overcome grief. If we don't reach that mountaintop of complete wellness, we're failures. Our struggles become a source of shame, a sign of weakness. And that shame drives a wedge deeper than the pain itself. It prevents us from seeking help, from sharing our struggles, from embracing the messy reality of healing. Because here's what we fear. If we admit we're still hurting, if we acknowledge the ongoing battle, we fear we'll be labeled incomplete, inadequate, broken. But here's the radical idea. Acknowledging our brokenness doesn't make us broken. It makes us human. Here's the other side of the coin. On average, we spend twice as much time in negative emotions as positive ones. Our brains are wired to pay more attention to threats than to safety. It's an evolutionary inheritance. Life on the savannah was perilous. Being vigilant about potential dangers increased our chances of survival. But here's the catch. That same wiring that kept us safe in the past can harm us in the present. Our brains still fixate on what's wrong, what's missing, what could go wrong. And when we listen to that voice, when we let it dictate our choices, our actions, our lives, we amplify our pain, we magnify our fears, we create a self-fulfilling prophecy of misery. But what if instead of giving into the negativity bias, what if we leverage it? What if we use the brain's natural inclination towards threat to protect us from harm? In that case, we'd focus on what's working, what's going well, what's making a difference, however small. We'd celebrate those wins, no matter how modest, because they hold the key to resilience. They're the antidote to the negativity bias. We'd learn to savor the subtle joys, appreciate the everyday blessings, celebrate the small victories. And in doing so, we'd shift our perspective. We'd see that life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about embracing the beauty amidst the brokenness, the joy amidst the sorrow, the growth amidst the scars. It's about recognizing that healing doesn't mean becoming whole. It means becoming whole enough. Because here's the wisdom contained within our pain. Our scars are reminders of our strength, our endurance, our capacity to keep going. Our stumbles are not signs of failure, but markers of growth. Our vulnerabilities expose our humanity, our shared experience. Our pain is not a burden to carry, but a wellspring of empathy, of understanding. It's a testament to our capacity for deep feeling, for passionate living. Here's the final paradox. Sometimes the most transformative experiences come from our darkest moments. The pain, the struggle, the despair. When we confront them, when we sit in their presence, when we allow them to be, that's when we discover our resilience, our resourcefulness, our capacity for love and growth. It's in the crucible of pain that we forge the most profound wisdom. In the depths of despair that we discover our most authentic selves. And that's the essence of acceptance, not in the absence of struggle, but in the willingness to engage with it, to learn from it, to evolve through it. Because here's the ultimate truth. The willingness to embrace our brokenness is what liberates us. It's what allows us to step into our power, to live authentically, to connect deeply, to create meaning. It's what enables us to dance with life in all its beauty and its brokenness, in all its joy and its sorrow, in all its wholeness and its incompleteness. In the tapestry of our existence, every thread, dark and light, woven together creates a masterpiece of resilience. It's a masterpiece that whispers a profound truth. You don't have to be whole to be strong. You don't have to be unbroken to be beautiful. You don't have to be complete to be powerful. And that, my friends, is the essence of acceptance. Imagine waking up in a room you've lived in your entire life. Familiar furniture, comforting shadows, the same pictures on the wall. But something's changed. A subtle hum in the background, a crack in the mirror. You move closer and realize, this room, this place you've called you, it's not a home, it's a cell. And for the first time, you don't look away. This is the beginning of the rebellion. Not a revolution of noise, but of silence. Not external defiance, but inner defection. Because the greatest act of liberation you will ever perform is refusing to lie to yourself one more day. But don't mistake this for inspiration. It will not feel noble. It will feel like dying. Like ripping out a part of you that has kept you alive. Because in a way, it has. The lies you told yourself, I'm fine. This is just how life is. They didn't mean to hurt me. I don't care anymore. These lies were scaffolding. They held you upright when truth felt too heavy. But now they are crutches you no longer need. And the longer you hold them, the more they cripple you. So how do you begin? Start by noticing. Noticing is a quiet form of rebellion. You don't need to act yet. You just need to see. The way your voice changes when you speak to different people. The way you say yes when your body screams no. The tension in your jaw when someone disagrees with you. The empty scroll through social media when you're pretending not to be lonely. These are not random tics. They are messages from the parts of you still waiting to be heard. Then, question, relentlessly. Not just what you believe, but why you believe it. Who gave you that belief? Who benefits from it? Does it serve you, or does it keep you small? When did you first accept it? And what were you afraid of losing if you didn't? This isn't about dismantling your identity. It's about reclaiming it from all the hands that shaped it without your consent. Here's the truth no one tells you. Your beliefs are rented. You inherited them from family, culture, trauma, religion, school. You didn't choose most of them, but you live by them as if they were sacred, as if questioning them would unravel the universe. It won't. The universe doesn't care what you believe, but your soul does. And what happens when you challenge those beliefs? You begin to grieve. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you're letting go of something familiar. Something that once protected you. You grieve the story of who you thought you were. You grieve the wasted time, the friendships that were never real, the opportunities you ignored, the love you settled for. You grieve not because you're broken, but because you are finally healing. And healing requires an enemy. In this case, it's not society. It's not your parents. It's not the people who hurt you. The enemy is the voice inside you that says, stay small, be agreeable, don't dig too deep. That voice is not you. It's your fear, wearing your voice like a mask. And once you see it, you no longer have to obey it. Now, here's where it gets counterintuitive. Rebellion is not rage. Rage is easy. Rage is reactive. But real rebellion, the kind that changes everything, is often quiet, deliberate, inconvenient. It's choosing to tell the truth in a room full of performance. It's walking away from a role you've played too well for too long. It's pausing before you explain yourself and realizing you don't have to. It's feeling shame rise in your chest and saying, no, not today. That shame isn't mine. And yes, it's terrifying. Because once you start telling yourself the truth, you lose the comfort of false clarity. You can no longer call your suffering normal. You can no longer blame everyone else. You start to see your part in your own misery. But here's the other side of that terror, power. Because when you stop lying to yourself, the world begins to change. Subtly, then all at once. People start treating you differently, some better, some worse. That's okay. You're no longer molding yourself to earn their approval. You're no longer trading authenticity for safety. Your decisions shift, not because someone told you to, but because you're listening to something deeper than opinion, your own inner knowing. Not the ego, not the wounded child, but the part of you that never needed to lie in the first place. You begin to experience a strange new sensation. Alignment, not happiness, not bliss. Something truer, a kind of inner gravity, like you've finally stepped into your own skin after years of watching someone else wear it. And maybe you start to speak. Not to convince, not to argue, just to express, just to exist in truth. And when you do, you become dangerous, not in the destructive sense, but in the way truth always threatens illusions. People may resist you, mock you, leave you. Let them. You didn't come here to play a role. You came here to wake up. This rebellion won't look like fire and fury. It will look like boundaries, like choosing rest instead of proving worth, like saying I don't know instead of pretending certainty, like finally asking for what you need, even if your voice trembles, especially if it trembles. And sometimes, rebellion will feel like love. Love for the parts of you you once disowned. Love for the version of yourself who lied just to survive. Love for the people who couldn't meet you where you needed because you no longer need to shrink to reach them. You won't do this perfectly. You will still slip into old patterns. You will still catch yourself posturing, pleasing, pretending. That's not failure. That's residue. Let it fall away in layers. Truth doesn't demand perfection, only presence. Because here's the secret. This rebellion is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you who to be. And once you begin to remember, you cannot go back to sleep. The final door is near now, the one you've been circling your entire life. Behind it waits not just truth, but a final, shattering clarity. You've faced the lie, felt its cost, and chosen freedom. But are you ready to meet what lies beneath it all? Let's open the last door. There is a moment, quiet and cataclysmic, when the scaffolding of every lie you ever believed falls away, and for the first time, you are not left with clarity, but with nothing. No map, no mask, no narrative to cling to, just silence. And in that silence, a question echoes, not with panic, but with profound stillness. If I am not who I thought I was, then what am I? Here is the final truth. The self you've spent your life defending, the one you've sacrificed authenticity to protect, the one you've polished for others to admire, the one you lied to yourself to preserve, is an illusion, not metaphorically, literally. The self is a construct, a story told by memory, shaped by culture, driven by fear. It's not a thing. It's a process, fluid, fragmented, invented on the fly. The you who felt shame at age 6 is not the same you who made that last compromise. And yet, you stitch these moments together like pearls on a string and call it a person. But remove the string, and what remains? This is the terror and the liberation. Because when you let go of the illusion of a fixed self, you stop clinging to its defense. You stop needing to be consistent. You stop needing to be right, good, worthy, special. You stop needing to make sense to others, or even to yourself. You stop fearing contradiction because you realize you are made of contradictions. You don't find yourself. You create yourself. And then sometimes you let that creation die to make room for a new one. You are not the mask. You are the awareness behind it. This is what the mystics meant. This is what Socrates gestured toward when he said, "Know thyself," only to reveal there was no self to know. This is what Jung pointed to with the shadow, what Buddha saw under the Bodhi tree, what Kierkegaard meant by the leap of faith, not into dogma, but into the abyss of not knowing. The ego wants something solid, something it can measure and improve. But consciousness, it is ungraspable. It cannot be pinned down. The more you look for it, the more it disappears. And that is the ultimate joke, the final unmasking. You were never a thing. You were an experience unfolding. And yet, this realization is not nihilism. It's not emptiness. It's spaciousness. It's freedom from the exhausting task of being someone. You don't have to uphold a persona. You don't have to edit your truth to fit an image. You are no longer bound by the fiction of identity. This is the point where many turn away. They taste the edge of this realization and recoil, because the idea of no self feels like annihilation. But it's not. It's an invitation, because what dies is not you, but the illusion of separation, of permanence, of control. What remains is not nothingness. It is presence. Pure, unfiltered, unperforming presence. When you stop identifying with the self, you begin to see clearly, for the first time. You see how much of your suffering was born from defending an idea of who you should be. You see how fear of being wrong, unlovable, or weak came from the belief that you had to be something to deserve love. You see how judgment of others, of yourself, was the ego's desperate attempt to feel real. But now you see, reality does not need your performance. It only asks for your attention. And when you give it your attention, fully, nakedly, without interpretation, you begin to awaken. Awakening is not a moment. It is a continual surrender. A letting go of everything you were told, everything you told yourself, everything you believed you had to be. And in that surrender, something unexpected happens. Compassion. Because when you no longer see yourself as a solid, separate entity, you stop seeing others that way too. Their projections, their cruelty, their masks. You see it all. And instead of reacting, you feel compassion. Not pity, not superiority, compassion, because you know what it's like to wear a mask so long you forget your own face. You know what it's like to lie for survival, to perform for belonging, to shrink for acceptance, to betray your own truth just to feel safe. So when you see someone caught in their own illusion, you don't judge them, you recognize them. And something softens. You no longer need to win. You no longer need to be right. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone, not even to yourself. You are free. Not because you became something, but because you let go of everything. And here, at the end, we circle back to the beginning. That moment of self-deception, the one you built your world around. It wasn't your weakness. It was your wound. A wound that needed covering until you were strong enough to face it. And now, you are strong enough. Not because you are invulnerable, but because you are no longer hiding. This is the ultimate truth. There is nothing to defend, nothing to prove, nothing to fix. You are not a problem to be solved. You are not a persona to be refined. You are not a concept at all. You are awareness, vast, empty, luminous. And once you taste that, truly taste it, not just understand it, but feel it, you can never unknow it. The lies lose their power. The masks fall away. The ego grows quiet. And life begins. Raw, mysterious, unfiltered life. Not as a performance, but as a dance. Not as a pursuit of identity, but as an unfolding of presence. So, take a breath. Feel this moment. Let go. There is nothing left to protect. You are already home.